1.
You're late.
Recording in progress.
So welcome everyone. This is a meeting of the Zoning and Planning Committee, and indeed it is the last meeting of the Zoning and Planning Committee for the year and of the term. So it is a certain historical moment in its own right. We are very grateful to be joined by all of you online and those in the room. When we go around, we'll ask people to introduce themselves, because they'll do a better job than I will, but I want to make sure that we make sure everyone is recognized. And we're going to have several items for discussion tonight, and then a number of items are on the agenda, but they are all anticipated to be voted in so that they can be refiled if the docketers so desire in the new term, because we're not going to have time to deal with them in this term. And then at the conclusion of all of that heavy lifting of committee business, we will celebrate two of our number in the planning department who are departing, and just to thank them very much, Ms. Kyra and Mr. Heath. That doesn't mean we don't thank, where's Zach? There, Zach. Zach, we thank you, but you're
coming back for more.
You're at least on the return engagement list, and we're delighted to have you. So thank you.
Of course.
And also I want to thank Ms. Holden here, who's to my left, who's managing all of this process and has been an invaluable part of the committee. I would say that on the table for those who are attending in person are some fluids, some eggnog, just plain eggnog, nothing exotic, but also some magnificent cookies. The vice chair's function in this committee has been extraordinary, and this is another opportunity to notice how extraordinary it has been, because he has brought us cookies from Antoine's, which he has supplemented with other resources.
Yes. And there's a free cookie minimum.
They're meant to be tried out, and take a plate and some napkins. I mean, they don't have to wait till the end, because they'll just get stale. So, all right. So with that, let me just start with the two items that are somewhat parallel to each other, and therefore will probably make sense to discuss together. They're item 6324, and that's referred to Public Facilities and Zoning Planning Committee, requesting an update on the status of the implementing the Climate Action Plan. And then the second item is a discussion of climate resiliency, to hear updates and plans. And the docket items themselves are extensive, but I won't take time to read all of that in the record so that we can get underway. I do want to recognize, however, at the outset that we're joined by the vice chair of the committee, Councilor Oliver, Councilor Albright from Ward 2, Councilor Getz in the room from Ward 5. We're certainly glad to have Councilor Leary from Ward 1 as a visitor and guest, and all of that.
I thought this was a joint meeting and I had to be here.
Oh, you came for the cookies.
Yeah, we're delighted to have you. Councilor Danberg has joined us, and then online we have Councilor Wright, and we are also joined by Councilor Kalis online. I see Councilor-elect Silver online. Also, Councilor Block online. Have I missed anybody? Oh, excuse me, Councilor Kelly over here on, sorry, apologies.
And Councilor Wright.
And Councilor Wright I mentioned, and then we're also joined by Mr. Lee of the Law Department. Thank you very much.
And now Councilor Krinsman.
And now Councilor Krinsman. All right. Those of you online who are still tempted by the cookies, you're welcome to move over here, but in the meantime, we will get underway. So I think I'd like to turn the meeting over to Ms. Berwick, and then would you introduce the people who are going to assist you in this process so that we can make sure that we've got everybody properly accounted for. Is that all right? You're muted, Ms. Berwick. Can you unmute? There we go. Whoops.
Okay, I didn't think I was being allowed to unmute myself. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Baker. So I want to introduce to this group somebody you probably already know, who's Caroline Weiss, who's sitting next to you, has the benefit of the eggnog and cookies, unlike me. And she is the city's climate action coordinator. And we were under the impression, Counselor Baker, that we were going to present mainly tonight on the development of Climate Action Plan 2.0, although we're happy to also talk about, part of that was going to be talking about progress under Climate Action Plan 1.0. So I'm happy to proceed. We're happy to proceed in any way you'd like.
No, I think you have the material you provided in background, I think is really helpful. And I just wanted to make sure that we give adequate justice to that, because you have quite an extensive presentation, and I'd like to have you have the opportunity to do that for people who haven't seen it, and then take us through it. And then we can have people ask questions as we go. Meanwhile, we will try and sustain ourselves in your absence with cookies and fluids.
Right, I get that you're sustaining yourself. The presentation that you're referring to is both an update on progress under CAP 1.0 and in somewhat more depth, the development of CAP 2.0. So would you like me to start there?
Yeah, I would start with a sort of progress report and then tell us where you're going. I think that would be helpful if that's.
Okay. Happy to do that. And that's actually in the presentation that you have, slides 4 and 5, which focuses on where we've been under CAP 1.0. And is that up on your, are you seeing that? Is that showing on your screen or?
We see use less and green the rest. This is just the opening sort of title slide.
Okay, well, you might, if we're talking about progress under CAP 1.0, it would be great if you would flip to slide 4, which has a timeline of progress.
Yeah, so just to clarify, I should just jump ahead a few slides. Yeah.
So are you going to run the slides? Or
Yeah, I'm running the slides. So
okay.
I joined the meeting remotely, so I'll share the slides when you're ready to advance, and just let me know. But it sounds like you'd like me to jump to the timeline.
Yeah, to slide 4. Was that what you have as numbered as a timeline as slide 4?
I don't know if you can see what we can see, but we've got.
Well, I can't, but I'm looking at my copy of what I believe you're looking at. So this gives the timeline of past progress, both under CAP 1.0 and where Newton has been really since 2010. And I think it is a moment for there's a lot we shouldn't be congratulating ourselves about, but we should stop for a moment, I think, and congratulate ourselves about what we have accomplished. So starting in 2010, in fact, Newton was one of the first group of state designated green communities. And under that program, the city has received actually many millions of dollars in state grants. I'm not going to read this whole timeline to you, but we adopted the first climate action plan in 2019. And since then, the specialized code was adopted by the city council, which is the state's most progressive building code. Electrification ordinance also adopted, requiring all new construction major renovations to be all electric. Village Center Overlay District. Berto actually signed into law, and a Berto administrator just recently hired. So there's been an enormous amount of progress. If you look at the next slide, can you, Caroline, or whoever is managing this, if you call up the next slide on progress, there's a lot that's been accomplished both under CAP 1.0 and outside of CAP 1.0. For example, BERDO was adopted, the fossil fuel-free ordinance was adopted. Neither was actually even mentioned in CAP 1.0. And we're trying to implement all of CAP 1.0 and then CAP 2.0, but we're not bound sort of with any rigidity not to take up other measures that come our way. So I just want to highlight on progress since CAP 1.0. I'm not going to read you the whole thing. Work with partners, especially Green Newton, Mothers Out Front, 350.org. The city had the wisdom to hire Caroline Weiss as our new climate action coordinator, and formerly known as a city energy coach. And Caroline runs the Energy Coach program. So I've already mentioned a number of other things on this list. All new schools are all electric. Several municipal buildings are now all electric. And for the first time in the city's public buildings, we have ground source heat pumps at Franklin and Countryside Elementary Schools. Which is hugely important. I'm happy to talk more about that. Then moving on to slide 6, I'm going to be painfully frank and say some of this is disappointing. We, as you can see, and again, I'm not going to read all of this, 1,500 heat pumps installed in the last 6 years. That's not enough. I'm sure all of you understand how important that is and why that's important. We can't clean natural gas and fuel oil that we use for heating, but electricity can be clean if it's generated by renewables, and therefore very important to move towards electrification of everything that can be electrified. I want to point out that of the 20 plus megawatts of solar on city facilities, that includes about 5.5 megawatts on residential and commercial projects. That number actually includes solar on municipal facilities, in which there's about 5.5 megawatts currently, and a lot more in the works. So I want to just give you some context on that one. Some of you may have heard me say this in the past, but in the beginning years of the Patrick administration, so I served for all 8 years in the Patrick administration. In 2007, our climate team in the Patrick administration was discussing what we should articulate as the state's solar goal. And we struggled with the question of whether 4 megawatts as a state goal would be viewed as laughably ambitious. So notice we're now at 20 megawatts. We said 4 megawatts might be ambitious as a state goal. We're now at 20 plus megawatts in Newton. The state's at about 5,500 megawatts. So for those of us who need a bit of uplift, I think that's at least worth noting. But not all these numbers are as high as we wish they were, obviously. So would you like me, Councilor Baker, would you like me to go on with implementation?
Thank you, because we've been joined by other members of the council and council-elect. So I want to recognize Councilor Wright has joined us now in person.
For the cookies.
Councilor Getz is here, and also we've been joined online, I think, by Councilor Farrell and Councilor-elect Roach is here, and anybody else I haven't seen. Katie, that is in the among our councilors or councilors-elect.
No.
Okay. All right. So just pause for a second. Anybody have any questions so far? Vice Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for the info here. And I just want to make sure I'm tracking along with a couple of these numbers. When we talk about 1,500 heat pumps, are we literally talking about head units or homes with head pumps?
I think we're talking about homes.
Homes, you think?
Yeah, thanks for that clarification. Yes.
Okay, all right, it's better than individual because, yep, I would imagine that a lot of homes in Newton would have multiple, at least head units, if not the exterior units.
Sure, yes.
Outside.
And if I could add, it's likely an underestimate as well. From 2019 to 2023, there were about 1,200 heat pumps installed as part of Mass Save. So that's not counting heat pumps installed without Mass Save incentives in Newton. And data from Mass Save has not yet been released for 2024 or 2025. So just from a quick glance at our permit data, there's about 250 additional on top of that 1,200, which is likely quite a low estimate.
Great, and that was gonna be my next question overall, because you start to look at the, the total amount of solar installed in residential and commercial projects. And I was just wondering, how do we know?
This comes from Mass CEC PTS, which is Production Tracking System data. So there's actually a statewide website called MA Greenhouse Gas Inventory that was recently released. And it pulls from state databases and you can search by municipality. So 20.8 megawatts installed in Newton is actually directly from that source, which comes
Okay.
from the smart data set.
And then
other
like
insights.
are all installers required to report what's installed where? Is
As
that pretty?
far
or
as I
they-
know, this is very comprehensive,
Okay. all
but it
right.
is from 2023/2024. So again, in reality, that number is likely higher.
Right, it's probably off a little bit, but okay, thank you, I appreciate it. That's all I have.
No, Counselor Wright.
What would be helpful, and maybe you can redo this, is here's our progress, but this was our goal. So we can see if we went beyond or if we're, falling short. And then maybe some bullets on some ideas on how to meet these goals. Because it's great to have all these numbers, but again, until you told us about the solar, it meant nothing to me, compared to what the goals were. So that would be very, very
We do
helpful.
have an upcoming slide that I can skip to if it'd be helpful to give some of that context.
Oh, you can do it along the way. And then something interesting, I just had Mass Save to see about heat pumps. And I was shocked that it was gonna be $75,000 and they told me I had to keep both of my furnaces.
No, that's not true.
That's
I mean,
what-
I'm not questioning that you were told that, but it's not true that you have to keep your furnaces. That's not true.
So I have a really old house and I think that's why they were saying that I needed to keep my furnaces. Because, I mean, why would I get heat pumps if I'm gonna have to replace my furnaces anyways along the way, especially for that price?
No, that's, as I said, it's not the case that you have to keep your furnaces.
Well, I think what I'm going to suggest is that we go through the presentation and then come back to the sort of where do we go with this, both for the city's aggregate conversation and also individuals like you who are getting information that may not be fully accurate. But I have Councilor Leary want to ask a question, and then Councilor.
Yes, thank you very much. And I was wondering, how much more opportunities do we have to put on additional solar on school and municipal properties and locations? Do you know for how much we'd like to be there? And also, isn't solar important for us in order to, because electricity is getting more expensive, if you can, that would really help defray the costs, because it's just going up a lot.
Yes, yes. Okay, so as I said, I think I said there's about 5.5 megawatts now on city facilities. There's about another 1.5 megawatts of solar capacity on municipal buildings that are in the final stages of construction and awaiting utility interconnection. And then there's another 8 projects beyond that we're working on getting under contract. I would be surprised if there are a lot more opportunities, cost-effective opportunities for city projects beyond that currently. Think about roofs. You're not going to put solar on roofs that are going to need to be replaced or significantly repaired in the near term. And although I would love to see solar on every municipal parking lot, well, on every large parking lot, it's more expensive to put solar on parking lots than on rooftops. So I would be surprised if there are a lot more rooftop opportunities beyond what we've already done and beyond what's in the works. Currently, that is.
That's,
Okay, yes, I mean, I was wondering if we had a goal of what what we'd like to see in the next 5 years, for example, for the amount of solar installations that we have on a school and municipal property. Is there a number there, or? we
Well,
have-
as I said, there's 8 currently in the works under construction. And no, sorry, not 8, 1.5 megawatts more under construction and another 8 projects that we're working on getting under contract.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
want to make sure we get through the presentation, but
Yeah.
Councilor Getz and then,
The only question I have is comparative, in terms of other municipalities, our goals, in terms of just regionally, how we're doing and.
Yeah.
and
Well, good question. Newton actually has, well, I believe, I can't say this with absolute certainty, but I'm pretty close to certain that Newton has more megawatts of solar on city facilities than any other municipality in the Commonwealth. So with respect to solar, we're not doing well enough, but we're doing better than everybody else.
thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Danvers.
Yes, question about the percentage of the total electric bill, so to speak, that we now cover with our solar.
I'm sorry, maybe I didn't hear everything, but I'm not sure I understand your question.
Cities bill.
Yes, the city gets an electric bill, let's say, all of our 85 buildings and everything, we have a number that our electricity costs us. Do you know what percentage of that bill, of the total amount that we owe electric companies, we are covering with the solar that we have?
If this answers your question, I think we are generating with solar on municipal buildings about 40%, between 35 and 40% of is it of the city, anyway, of those buildings,
That's right, it's about.
solar demand, electricity demand
Of total
or energy demand.
consumption on the buildings that we have solar
About
on.
35 to 40% of total city electricity consumption, saving us about $1 million. That's what I recall.
Okay.
I can definitely double check and get you some more
Do-
specific numbers.
Do we have any buildings that generate more electricity with the solar than the electricity that that particular building consumes?
Well, at any given moment, yes. So you can certainly imagine in the summer when a school is closed or not operating as a school, that it's feeding more energy, electricity into the grid than it's using at that point.
Mhm.
So as a result of that, the city builds up credits, which it then can call upon when it's not generating as much electricity as the building is using. So it's a sort of moment by moment question.
Okay, I think that answers close enough my question. Thank you.
So, Ms. Berwick, can you not see the slides and they're not being shared? I mean, we can see them. I'm just wondering, just to make it easy on you.
No, I can't. I can see, I'm looking at my own copy of the slides and my own notes.
Well, we'll just try and make sure that Ms. Weiss is keeping current with you and vice versa. But
Does it sound like I'm talking about something you're?
no, I just want to make it easy on you. But you're
Thank you.
looking at progress since CAP 1.0 and you were talking.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Is any other highlights? We can read those, but is anything you want to just pick out that you want to add to that slide? Otherwise, we'll move on.
Well, in addition to congratulating this city for its wisdom in hiring Caroline Weiss, which is a move that Sam and I thank our lucky stars for on a daily basis. Um, I just think the city council should be proud of itself for the progressive measures that it has adopted in the last however many 18 months or whatever it's been, the specialized code, BERDO, the fossil fuel-free ordinance, which by the way makes us one of only 10 communities in the Commonwealth that can require all new construction to be all electric. So, I mean, I think those are, in addition to the brilliant work, frankly, that Josh Morse does in making sure that new schools are all electric and municipal buildings are electrified whenever there's an opportunity for that.
Okay, um, we also have various gadgets, not solar powered though. Councilor O'Brien.
You may come to this later, I don't know, but I'm curious. If our electrification ordinance has affected the number of new starts yet, or are things going along as they always have?
As far as I know, yes, we need to do reporting for the state by June 30th of this year. So last year, before I realized we didn't have to report that year because since our ordinance was adopted January 1st, 2025, I was already looking at around 40 new construction projects. So we're working with ISD to more efficiently pull that data for this June, and we'll have those numbers.
Okay, so you'll have it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, good
okay,
question. It definitely is affecting new construction and major renovations. I just don't have specific numbers.
all right, good.
So one of the things, Ms. Weiss, I think will be helpful is that as you listen to these questions, as you think about the next time you come back and we have another conversation about this, the issue about goals and about where we are compared to our peers and things like that would be useful, just a structured conversation around that.
Yeah.
Okay, next slide, do you want to go?
Next slide in.
So are we going now to, well, we talked about 5 and 6, so
Yep, I have 7 up on the screen now.
you have 7 up, okay. So
Do you want to go beyond that to progress?
are there any questions before we get to slide 7? Okay, sure, I'll go ahead with slide 7 then. So challenges, of which there are obviously many. Vehicle miles traveled have increased slightly. We don't know why. We suspect it's some kind of COVID artifact. People started going into the office more, that kind of thing. There was less driving for a while related to COVID. That's our guess. We don't know for sure. Residential electrification is a challenge. No surprise in that. We are moving forward thanks to the Energy Coach program, the Community First Partnership, which is a collaboration with Green Newton to increase participation in mass save energy efficiency programs. But there's no getting away from it. Residential electrification is challenging. And Newton Power Choice, some of you may be aware, we've just signed recently signed and announced a new Newton Power Choice contract. So since the beginning of Newton Power Choice, Newton absolutely led the state in the percentage of renewable electricity credits, RECs, that people had an opportunity to purchase under Newton Power Choice. And we are not including renewable energy credits in the new Newton Power Choice contract because of reasons I can go into, but related to changes in federal policy. Which means it would not be, but it would be costly but not productive in terms of encouraging new renewables for us to include the purchase of RECs in Newton Power Choice. We are under Newton Power Choice looking at a couple of other opportunities, but they're not fully baked yet. Other opportunities to include support for renewable energy as part of Newton Power Choice. In any event, we're not there yet. Newton Power Choice, however, the new contract is lower in price. The price is lower than the the current actually Newton Power Choice contract, and is also less than the current Eversource basic service price. So there's a benefit under Newton Power Choice in terms of price, but not renewables. Should I move on to slide 8, barriers to progress?
Question from Councilor Wright. on
Just a
this one.
quick question. Vehicle miles traveled have increased. It'd be nice to know from what year to what year.
From 2019, no, 2020 to 2025 are as the years available in the mass vehicle census.
Okay.
Is where we've been getting it from.
Yes. Thanks,
Those-
Caroline. So that's not granular enough to really tell us much.
Right.
So on that.
Excuse me, you
Sorry.
have to be recognized. You would like to ask a question? Councilor-elect Rowe.
Thank you. So that's an aggregate of vehicle miles, it's not by household?
Did you hear that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good. It provides an aggregate for vehicle miles traveled in total in Newton. And then you can also look at like the average daily number of vehicle miles traveled. So like per car or vehicle registered in Newton. And you can also look at the percentage of vehicles that are electric, vehicles that are plug-in hybrids. So this is all data that we'll be tracking on our dashboard, which I'll share more about in a few slides. But the site's great. I recommend taking a look.
Okay, but there's no data that would allow us to map the vehicle miles traveled to neighborhoods.
Not that I'm aware of, though that would be great if there were. Not that I'm aware of, unfortunately.
I want to keep the slide moving, but Councilor Chamber.
Just quickly, how do we know, how many vehicle miles have been traveled? How is that? How do you know? I have a Rivian. How do you know what's on my dashboard?
It's a state database, so I actually should look more into the attributes of where they're getting that data from, but I know that the vehicle counts are from vehicles registered in Newton, so I'm sure there's some like calculation applied to determine by number of vehicles registered and how many miles they're tracking on state roads to get some kind of estimate, but that's a really great question and I will look into it.
Thank you.
Yeah, well,
No, I don't think it's quite that specific.
You don't know who-
Thankfully,
Who's
probably.
looking at your dashboard, right?
Yeah.
Besides you. Councilor-elect Rowe.
The people who are looking at her dashboard besides her are the folks who are doing the yearly,
Yeah,
State inspection,
inspections.
right?
Oh,
Good point.
and they're required to,
Put the mileage.
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
report the mileage.
Yeah.
Very
That's how to
smart,
be it.
very smart.
But again, I think this is the kind of question for the next time you come
Yeah,
around, it'll be
Taking
helpful.
notes.
Okay.
And would you like the next slide?
Slide 8?
Yeah.
Are we on slide 8? Okay. So barriers to progress. Don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but obviously the role of the federal and state government, we just mentioned, for example, the effect on Newton Power Choice of changes in federal policy. Also, as I'm sure many of you know, there have been changes recently in federal policy affecting vehicle mileage standards. So we're at the mercy in some respects of the federal government. The city doesn't have absolute authority to do everything it wants with respect to sustainability and many other issues. For example, we can't adopt our own building or electrical code. We have to adopt, we have some choices in terms of the state building codes that are available, 3 to be exact, but we can't promulgate our own building code. There are a number of other ways in which the city has, respects in which the city has somewhat limited leverage. Obviously, we have limited city budget and resources, where I think I want to call out the fact that we're very fortunate to have a robust sustainability team. You're seeing 2 of us, and of course Sam, who sorry he couldn't be here tonight, and also now we have a Berto administrator, Darius Bailey. So we have a pretty robust team, but if we had all the money we wanted, or that I wanted anyway, I would love to be able to put more money into subsidizing electrification, both initial costs, capital costs of electrification and operating costs. Then obviously we had the COVID pandemic, no need to belabor that. And we need a cultural shift, right? And that's both a barrier and I would say maybe our most significant challenge. If everybody were as convinced as a lot of us are about the need for addressing climate change, then we wouldn't have to work so hard on getting people to drive EVs or take public transportation or put heat pumps in place. But anyway, so I'm not probably telling you anything you don't know here. Any questions on this, or should we keep going?
I think the point about the subsidizing electrification and again, part of the challenge I suspect that all of us run into is just the information gap between what is available out there and what people understand can be done. And we've even had Councilor Wright indicate that there's some information that may not be accurate coming even through sort of official or semi-official sources. So part of the longer range issue that I don't think we can solve tonight, but again, is how do we take advantage of Ms. Weiss and her team here to make sure the public is well informed and then can make the right decisions. But we can continue on in that process.
Yeah, super, super important point. There's a lot of misinformation out there, including misinformation about whether heat pumps perform in cold weather, which they do.
We'll have a test tonight and maybe you can find out, right?
Well, I think, as I've mentioned a number of times, we have a house in New Hampshire in the mountains that doesn't have a furnace. And we're still surviving comfortably. So
Your demonstrative evidence of that. Anyway, so let's go on to the next slide.
All right, so I'm gonna take this next section, which is about the process of developing our updated climate action plan. You may recognize this slide from when we presented back in May, but I thought it would be helpful to provide some more context and show where we are now. So back to April, when the process for updating this plan started, our team had conversations with department heads about what they were working on and what they were planning for related to climate action, and those conversations haven't ceased. They've been ongoing, as Laura and Zach can attest to. We also got some early input from our environmental community here in Newton back in April, which I can thank Demi for helping me organize. We then, in drafting our outline, assessed our progress with where we'd been in CAP 1.0 and identified both ongoing and new initiatives, which informed that outline. Over the summer, we wrote our draft climate action plan, which we were glad to finally be able to share in October of this fall, which we've engaged the community on, and I'll share greater detail on that in the next slide. More recently, our team has been going through all of that feedback, which has been incredibly informative, and we're very grateful to all of you that have provided feedback into our community for helping improve the plan, and there's been ongoing revisions of that draft. Currently, I'm happy to say the draft is in the hands of our graphic designer, who will make it prettier and more accessible to read, I think, than just a text-heavy Word document. And she's also helping develop our dashboard, which will be an independent website that we'll link to on our city site, sharing our progress on various metrics identified in the draft plan. In the next term, we're looking forward to working with the new mayor and council to docket the plan with council. And after that, our main focus will be, of course, implementation and continuing to improve our measurement of our progress. So a text-heavy slide, but I thought it'd be helpful to provide detail here. So as I mentioned, we've been having ongoing conversations with several city departments. Sustainability does not live alone in our team, but really is being worked on by so many different staff. On the community side, we've engaged with folks in here in Newton way back in April at Earth Day, all the way through the Pumpkin Smash in October. I would table at community events, often with a large poster saying, what would you like to see in Newton's climate action plan, and a category for each chapter. People get to write what they wanted to see, and it sparked some great conversations. And there were also several presentations about the plan, such as a climate prep week at the library and our November 3rd public presentation. Once we opened the plan for public comment, residents and councilors and community was notified through our website, the mayor's newsletter, our climate newsletter, social media, over 30 direct emails to community organizations. And I'm probably missing something there, but we really put some effort into making sure it got out to people, especially given a limited turnaround time. And comments were accepted through an online form, email, and that listening session we had on November 3rd, which I think went really well and was nicely attended. Since then, we've been going through an iterative review of all the feedback we've received and revising the plan, alongside the development of our public dashboard, sharing the metrics that we have so far, which we'll continually add to, and I'm really excited to release that to the public, hopefully within a few weeks in a draft form. So now to get to a bit of the substance of the second climate action plan. Its goals are twofold. So the plan reaffirms the city's commitment to carbon neutrality by 2050 by mitigating climate change or reducing our emissions. And differently in this plan, increasing the city's resilience. So whereas before, and we still have the climate change vulnerability assessment, now there's some resilience elements woven into the second climate action plan. So the goals, of course, you can see are to reduce our emissions, to prepare our community for the effects of climate change and extreme weather that we're already seeing here in Newton in terms of hotter days and more extreme flooding and so on. And because climate action brings so many benefits from health to possible financial savings, likely financial savings and stronger resilience. So this slide is what I was referencing previously in terms of some milestones we've put out there. We've heard a lot about specific goals for our strategies in the first climate action plan. And one way that we can help track our progress, at least until we have more robust data, is by looking to the state's clean energy and climate plan, which also sets a 2050 net zero commitment and provides goals for 2030, as you can see in those first couple bullet points. Newton comprises about 1.2% of Massachusetts households. So objectively speaking, and there could be an argument that these milestones should be higher, we would be, by 2030, aiming to install around 6,000 heat pumps, which as you can see is now around 1,500, have 10,800 EVs registered in Newton, and about 100 megawatts of solar installed in Newton. So as you can see, we have a long way to go to accelerate that progress, but we're excited about some things that are along the way that are raising the profile of climate issues, such as FERDO and the electrification ordinance, as we've mentioned, as well as the continued work of energy coaching, neighbor-to-neighbor education, like sustainable streets, events like tomorrow's heat pump pizza party, which anyone is invited. I'm looking forward to that.
Say that it's a little slower again.
Heat pump pizza party.
And when is the heat pump pizza party?
Tomorrow at 6 at the library. Free pizza. We'll be talking about heat pumps and why they're good for the environment and for our climate action plan, and providing some information on how to get started and what financial incentives remain available.
And you're sure it's free pizza, not
Oh,
free
yeah.
heat pumps?
Free pizza. I wish we could do both.
Okay, just checking.
Again, if we had all the resources in the world, that we'd be handing out heat pumps, but
Councilor Wright.
Under the Mass Clean Energy and Climate Plan, it's 8360 megawatts of solar, and then under us is 100 megawatts.
It's us.
Okay, oh, that is the number, okay,
it should be 1.2% of the 8,360 number.
okay, thank you.
I have a couple of questions, but I'm going to say them, let you get through.
So next slide.
Yeah, if you don't mind. I'm sorry, was there another question? Do you have, Councilor Wright?
Real quick, those milestones, are those existing milestones or these are new milestones that are part of
So
this 2.0?
So let me just back up. There are existing state milestones that we've calculated Newton's percentage of, and we've added them to the updated draft of 2.0, which is not yet on the website. We hope to post the designed updated draft in a few weeks on our site. If that makes sense, I can go back.
It makes sense.
Yeah, if I could add something to that, what Caroline said is obviously accurate. There is an argument, as she mentioned, that Newton's share should be higher than 1.2% of mass households, given that we're a wealthier community than many other households in the than many other communities in the Commonwealth.
Let's just carry on for a bit. We've saved some questions at the end because I just want to get through because some of the questions may be answered as we go by.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so this quick slide, but I just wanted to provide a screenshot from our dashboard. I'm excited that it's moving along. It will cover each of the 4 chapters in our climate action plan, or the 4 main ones, as you can see at the bottom there. and is looking pretty robust, so keep an eye out for that. We will publicize it when it's ready to go. Just to highlight there. And into some of the substance, so we have 4 main chapters, as I mentioned, in the climate action plan. The one not on the screen yet that we'll get to next is resilience, but these first 3 chapters cover strategies for mitigation or reducing our emissions to limit the future impact of climate change. In each of these chapters, they're subdivided into actions and strategies that we commit to continuing and others that we're committing to exploring. So for example, I'll just name a few of these. In buildings and energy, it's the strategies in the Climate Action Plan 2.0 involve decarbonizing city buildings, continuing along that route, supporting residential electrification, implementing building codes and standards like BERDO, and becoming a climate leader community, which is the next step up from the state's green communities and offers even more funding for decarbonizing municipal buildings. Our next chapter on transportation and mobility is about goals and strategies that would incentivize EVs, such as installing EV charging stations where we can, prioritizing infrastructure for sustainable transportation, reducing those vehicle miles traveled by making maybe biking and walking more accessible. And on the city side, adopting a zero emissions first vehicle purchasing policy, which is actually a part of becoming a climate leader community. And then of course, consumption disposal includes strategies like educating the community further about reuse and waste reduction, improving recycling and composting collection in city facilities. And again, on the city side, implementing an environmentally preferred purchasing policy. And then I'll turn it to Anne to cover resilience.
So before you leave that for a minute, just any questions on, for instance, many years ago, we bought at the Rumford Avenue, a compost bin, which actually nobody knew how to put together. And so it was, I finally got somebody to help me, but it was an interesting idea that I think the city can help with, but you know, if you don't know that it's there, you wouldn't buy one. So it's the information side of this is really, I think, a vital part of what you're doing. So I'm glad you do a piece of part of it too.
Me too, absolutely. And I look forward to similar events like that to just raise awareness and education.
Okay. Councilor Olber.
I'm just curious, the climate leader community, which you said is a step up. So are there cities and towns that are in that?
Yes, there's already, I want to say around 20.
20 ahead of us?
We actually we wouldn't have been eligible for funds through this program yet anyway, because the city recently received that $500,000 grant for the heat pump chiller at the library. So we were on a 3-year hiatus from state grants in the Green Communities or Climate Leaders program to begin with. And once Sam came on board, we have been working on the application right away, which includes getting the zero emissions first purchasing policy developed or adopted and writing a decarbonization roadmap for which we have technical assistance. So it's moving along as quickly as possible. We're not losing out on any funding right now because we're not eligible.
I'm looking for the prestige.
Yes, well, we're moving along as quickly as we can.
Good, thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, you want to go on?
Yep.
Just going back to if I may, just going back to the compost issue that was raised a moment ago, I just want to point out that the city of Boston provides free compost collection. And provides an indoor bin for collecting compost inside, and then an outdoor bin for dumping all the collected compost into, and that gets picked up once a week, a free service. So just flagging that.
That's good to know. Councilor O'Brien.
So I've been an advocate for doing that in Newton, and I'm wondering, is Boston saving a lot of money in trash collection because all the heavy stuff is going into composting? Do you happen to know that?
I don't know the answer to that.
I would love to know that. And if
Yeah,
Water's also doing it, and if they're doing the same thing, it would be impetus, because I think our contract is coming due, or
For Wheelabrator, for
Yeah.
the trash incinerator, it is.
and so
Juanita would know that probably.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, again, this is the kind of question, I can testify that I carry it out in the backyard myself, and it doesn't cost the city anything. That's just
great.
Mine costs me $100 a year.
So resilience, this is an important new one. I think not new, but important to mention in this. So you want to Who's gonna carry this one through? His wife, or you gonna?
Yeah,
do
on
that?
resilience, I'm going to take this one. So are we now on slide 17 on resilience?
Yeah.
Okay, so the city is in fact very deeply involved in what we've been calling resilience and is often called adaptation efforts. The CAP 2.0 does touch on these issues, but a number of other plans are city plans are much more focused on them. And I'll run through what those plans are quickly and who's in charge of them. There's an open space and recreation plan that and the Planning and Parks and Rec Department is in charge, but both Planning and Parks and Rec Departments are in charge of that plan and next updated in 2030. The Hazard Mitigation Plan and Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan, both are now being updated and I think are nearly complete. And the fire chief is in charge of that one, or those two. Stormwater Infrastructure Improvement Plan, which is obviously crucial. And that's the Department of Public Works. And Jonathan, I believe, presented on that and some of these other plans as well to public facilities just a few months ago. A phosphorus control plan, DPW is in charge of that one, and then a tree planting plan that's within the capital improvement plan, and that's Parks and Rec, specifically Mark Welch. That's being updated every year. So there's a lot going on the resilience and adaptation front. Just it's not mainly within the purview of the sustainability team, although we are touching on it certainly in this latest climate action plan.
So there's one that's sort of there, but not, is that new contract that DPW just signed to do a plan for our stormwater infrastructure. Really fits onto this slide. I mean, it
Well,
has-
there are a number of issues sort of subsumed in the the DPW activities on stormwater, including the stormwater ordinance, which is aimed at getting construction projects to retain stormwater and reduce any downstream impacts. The phosphorus control plan, and which is an federal EPA requirement. Stormwater infrastructure improvements having to do with management of street sweeping, catch basin cleaning, and the like, and keeping the whole system functioning well during rain events. So there are a lot of pieces of all this. And I might mention here as well that one of the recommendations we got in feedback on CAP 2.0 was to establish a biodiversity commission, and we have instead indicated our intention to establish a biodiversity working group, which will assess the health of the city's forested lands and open spaces and set targets for preservation and restoration efforts on municipal lands, among other things. So there's a lot, as you can see, going on the resilience and adaptation front. It's just not all within CAP 2.0 or even within the work of the sustainability team.
You covered a couple of those in a couple of slides further out, but so carry on.
Okay, so I think we're moving now to slide 18. Is that right? Are you ready to go on to that?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, slide 18 refers to a new chapter that is a chapter that was not included in CAP 1.0 on what you can do. And it addresses buildings, transportation, consumption, and adaptation or resilience. The the piece that always astonishes me, so was the piece we wrote on what you can do with respect to food consumption. And the fact that approximately 1/3 of the food produced in this country is actually wasted. So, although we have some recommendations with respect to, or at least some, provide some information on what kinds of foods, no surprise to any of us, I think, are particularly, or especially an issue with respect to greenhouse gas emissions, just wasting less. Not buying, not going shopping when you're very hungry, for example, storing food appropriately, not always paying attention to the expire by dates on all foods. It matters with respect to some foods, for example, infant formula, not with respect to other foods. There are lots of ways to minimize food waste. And then we have a lot of other recommendations about food consumption and about transportation and about buildings. I would say our most important buildings recommendation is to get a Mass Save audit. Really crucial. There's no reason to be, if you're going to electrify your house, for example, to be oversizing the system, which you would be doing if you're not adequately insulated. So again, you can read what's on this slide, but I think I'm really pleased to have this new chapter.
I would just let the record show what I mentioned at the outset, that the vice chair is assured that the cookies that are not eaten tonight will go home and not be thrown away. So I just want you to know that we're.
Eat those cookies, please.
Can I just comment on one thing? This individual opportunity, I think, is really an important one. And there's some fluids here too, that I hope that you will, Weiss, we can talk about that maybe more offline, but when I recall when we were talking about the override a number of years ago, people could go in and see what their particular tax would be. And if there were some way that the city, you could take your property and say, this is, what are you spending on this amount for gas or oil or whatever you're spending? If you were electrified, maybe you would be spending less, or you would be, in other words, just rule of thumb that might incentivize people to call up Mass Save and say, come see me, or even a link. Because I think that part of the challenge, again, is what people can learn on their own before they go to the step of having an audit.
You should speak to the Energy Commission. They're very interested in providing data about individual homes with what they're spending on.
I've tried to get it figured out with my house, but unfortunately it's so old and creaky, I have some difficulties, but never mind, that's aside. Councilor Danberg.
Ms. Berwick, Dr. Berwick just mentioned insulation and the importance of insulating. This weekend, this past weekend, there were 6 of us in the house. We had set the house, we went down for a couple of days unexpectedly, and we had set the house at 60. It's all electric with heat pumps, and the walls are 9 inches thick, with 6 inches of regular wall plus 3 inches on the exterior. And we setting the house at 60, with 6 people basically living in the house, it raised the temperature to 68 degrees without raising the temperature of the heat pump.
So you're going to create a whole new form of envy. It's green envy. All right.
Yeah, it's amazing what just the windows on the south. We don't have a lot of south windows. It's just the heat from the bodies of the people in the house that raise the temperature 8 degrees.
That's impressive.
Okay, any more comments on this page or questions?
I can wait to the end.
Yeah, no, we're not quite, we're almost there.
Okay.
And next slide.
Okay, I think we're going to slide 19, what we heard.
That's right.
Is that right? We heard a lot, and actually most of it extremely useful. There was a lot of very thoughtful feedback, which we appreciated. Um, there was a lot of sentiment that we should have goals, metrics, and specified actors for every strategy, which we did not fully adopt. We partially adopted, not actors for every strategy. Assessment of CAP 1.0, we did address that, as you've seen. There were a number of recommendations for policy goals, some of which we adopted, some of which we did not. I'll run through some of them quickly. Berto for small buildings, we think we should get our legs under us on the Berto we have adopted. That's a big enough task, and learn what we can from that before we go further. Electric school buses, we agree. And as we've said in the draft, the school department is doing its own climate action plan, which we will support them on, and we will work with them on identifying land for parking school buses. That's at the moment the chief obstacle. I mentioned already, but one of the pieces of feedback was to establish a biodiversity commission. Instead, we committed to establishing a biodiversity working group. Then there were a number of other recommendations which would take city council action. Explore opportunities for reducing light pollution from commercial buildings, city provided composting we've talked about, and pay as you throw curbside trash program. For example, supporting that with the much smaller blue trash barrel and the same size green recycling bin, I think might go some way in that regard. Also, I on the exploring opportunities for reducing light pollution for commercial enterprises, I am rarely awake and driving around at midnight, but on the rare occasions when I am astounded. Driving down, for example, down Needham Street, Highland Avenue, that whole stretch, at the number of buildings, commercial buildings that are fully lighted at midnight, and I'm sure throughout the night. So I think I understand that there are some security concerns, but I think if that's the concern, it's being over addressed, and I'd love to find a way to get to that, but obviously that would take city council action. So I think I'll stop there. Caroline may want to add something.
Let me just pause and Councilor Kalis has his hand raised, and I just want to ask if he want to ask Ms. Weiss to comment first, and then you ask your question, or you want to ask your question now, Councilor Kalis?
You could go with Ms. Weiss, and then I'll ask my question. Thank you.
You're
Okay.
welcome to. Anne covered everything that. I
All
brought
right,
up in
so,
the slide. Thanks for
okay, I
checking
just
it
want
out.
to make sure that we close the loop. Okay, Councilor Kalis.
So Ms. Berwick, on the policy goals, you have 6 here. What are the next steps, and how are you evaluating them to see which ones you move forward with, or are you waiting for council action? What actually is, how do we actually get some of these explored and moving?
Sure. Well, yeah, it's very specific to the particular policy goal, right? For example, and there were others. We picked a subset. There are others, but just sticking with the ones we have here on the list. Berto, let's get some experience with Berto as it's been enacted first. So that's just a question of getting experience. Electric school buses, as I mentioned, we need to find land to park school buses, and the city and the school department and the city sustainability team have committed to working on that. We committed to that in in CAP 2.0 biodiversity working group I just touched on. And then there are a number of items that would require city council action, such as we mentioned, reducing light pollution from commercial enterprises at night, free city provided composting, pay as you throw, curbside trash program.
Okay, so you're not docketing these. You want us to do this.
Well, at this point, I'm just flagging them. The climate
Okay.
act, we're just saying these were, all we're doing at the moment is saying these are things we have heard. And we certainly think some of them are worthy of consideration. Some would require city council action, some would not.
Thank you.
As I hear it, we're awaiting the plan itself, and then I think that will generate some docket items as I hear it. But there may be some things that people want to anticipate and move on sooner than that. That's certainly possible, but as I hear it, your efforts are going into putting the plan together and making it as user-friendly as you can, and then have people think about what you do next. So that leads to the question I'd be asking: when do you expect that you'll be ready with this to come back to us?
So the updated draft should be ready within a few weeks, designed and ready for sharing and for any further feedback. And then we'll work with the new mayor to bring it to council. So that could be January, but I'm not sure yet.
Okay, but soon.
Yeah,
you know,
soon,
not-
great.
not-
Yeah,
yeah,
no, we've gone through all the feedback and we're not losing sight of any of it either. Like some of these actions Dan has mentioned that require further work with council or further exploration of how they would work we're not losing sight of. We have a full like post climate action plan to do list of action items to address as a team and figure out, okay, what's the next path forward?
Well, I guess I can't speak for the future council necessarily, but I think it would be an advantage to have you come back before the budget process, certainly, and have enough time to begin to think about what can be docketed or what can be acted on before we get, because the budget sort of consumes us, as you know, in April, but it'll be April soon, faster than we think.
We'd be happy to be invited back.
Say again?
We would be happy to be invited back.
I think I can't speak for the future council, but I think there's interest around the table among at least me and perhaps others. Let me go to people now who've been patient about asking questions until we got through the presentation. Is there anything you want to say? Oh, excuse me, just explain, what does the QR code take you to? That's the draft?
Yeah,
Okay.
it takes you to the page that's called Climate Action Plan, where you can read both the first Climate Action Plan covering 2020 to 2025 and the draft that we released on October 23rd, and where the link will be posted of the updated and graphically designed draft in a few weeks.
Okay, thank you. All right, now, colleagues, questions you want to ask that you haven't asked? It's Councilor Lear.
Yes, thank you very much. So thank you so much for the presentation. It's really exciting to hear, you know, I knew we were always doing a good job. I know we have areas of improvement, and I love that we're still focused on this. And there's a couple of things that I think are really big priorities, and one of them is the resilience around flooding, stormwater management, utilizing our parks and open spaces. I'm also well aware that that would cost a significant amount of resources above and beyond what the city has. So I'm wondering if we're looking at any potential funding sources, both private and from the state, if that would be available to do that. Flooding is on everybody's mind. And I'll just say, I think if the city provides composting and we're actually talking about a pay-as-you-throw program, that would put us towards a much closer zero waste goal, and that would be critically important. They always call pay-as-you-throw the third rail of politics, you know, that the idea, and we've discussed this in the sustainability team working group, about us having a smaller blue cart, and if you want a larger one, you would have to pay for it. Like Brookline has a similar model. You could start off easy like that. And it would be interesting to know what the cost would be to offer Black Earth composting, similar to what the city of Boston does, and I believe the town of Watertown also does that. And it also gives you a good idea of how much food you waste.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how heavy that food waste is. And now I've been participating in that for a few years. I cannot imagine putting food waste in my trash anymore. It's just would be abhorrent to me to do it. Also, I really like the idea that that's going to be composted and as opposed to anaerobic digestion. That's important. If that's reinvesting in our soils and you know, mitigating carbon. So those are my comments and points. I don't really have a question, but those are what I think are just a real priority.
Thank you, and I know you did mention funding sources for resilience and flooding, and I can't speak to all the funding sources that I'm sure like DPW has, but I will mention. We're applying now, it's due on the 15th, for the municipal vulnerability preparedness 2.0 process, which is essentially a 2-year planning process for resilience with a $50,000 action grant that then makes us eligible for future action grants from the state to fund resilience related projects, and has funded resilience projects in the past for Parks and Rec. So excited that we're doing
And
that.
I just bought an EV, so you can add that to the
Great.
total.
I will, because I don't think it's been updated since July, so glad we're ticking up. I hope it's been treating you well.
I love it.
Good.
Yeah.
Let me just answer, I have a thought too, that you talked initially about the federal government, but the federal government taking a role of actually discouraging a good deal of the alternative energies. Still, my understanding is the economics still favor them in many cases, that solar and EVs and all of these things still
That's right.
make sense. But their sales have gone down because the subsidies have gone away. But I think that, again, this is part of the public education, but if, as part of the plan, the education can be that even if there is not a tax subsidy, there are still things you can do that will benefit you and all of that, because I think the sort of public commentary has been, well, these were only happening because there were subsidies. And when the subsidies went away, the value of them disappeared. And I don't think that's what I understand to be the case, but I think it's not, maybe everybody around this table knows that, but I'm not sure that's a generally available perception.
No, that's absolutely right. The federal subsidies have gone away, of course, but there are still state subsidies. But apart from that, just as you are saying, there are economic reasons without subsidies for favoring solar and wind, for example, as compared to fossil fuel generation. But I want to be honest about the cost of electrification. People cannot expect, even with the new heat pump rates, to save money on the operational costs of electrifying. So I think we need to be honest with people about that. So we can't be sending the message, well, you will save money if you go to heat pump heating, and then people come back and won't trust anything we tell them. So we need to be honest in that
I
regard.
think what you're really saying is how much are you spending on gas or oil and electricity, and what's your energy budget compared to
Well,
before?
yes. So if you're heating with electric resistance heat or with fuel oil, you will save money going to a heat pump. Your energy costs will your building energy costs will decrease. If you are currently heating with natural gas, converting to a heat pump system will not save you money. It is the right thing to do. There are still state subsidies for initial capital expenses, but it won't, it's not going to save you money if you're heating with natural gas.
Well, again, this is the kind of information that people need to understand where they can make those trade-offs.
Yeah. And we're doing a frequently, so we discovered when we put out some information on the new Newton Power Choice prices and the new state heat pump rate, that there was a lot of confusion and a lot of questions that even addressing those issues didn't answer. So we're hoping to do a comprehensive, or not we're hoping to, we will do a comprehensive set of frequently asked questions and answers related to energy use and costs.
One other thing, I think the light pollution idea is a wonderful one. It seems crazy to have people just shining lights not only into the sky where they can't see the stars anymore, but to waste that. Now, again, how you make the conversions is another story, but Councilor Albrecht.
Living where I do, I can see over to City Hall and the War Memorial and the Aldermanic Chamber. The lights are on so much in the night and in the early morning. So you might want to check out why that is. Why don't they turn off those lights?
I don't know, we should look into that.
Absolutely, please do.
North High School too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, the city itself could be a
Yeah.
pathfinder on this.
Not after midnight.
I mean, I figured out finally how to make my Christmas tree lights go out at night, but that was a big victory. But never mind. Other comments? Anybody? Counselor,
Defer to counselors.
okay, Counselor, yes, and then I'll come back to you.
The only comment I'd make is there's quite a bit of good content we've discussed in public facilities, and I do think going forward, the two committees really should meet together or in some way, move forward together. It seems as if it's appropriate for us to, in terms of these policy goals, to try and quickly coordinate. And then, I just sort of feel that we also have to have a context. We have to understand how this is impacting build in the city, in terms of the electrification requirements. And I just sort of, because we're hearing that, in the sense of what's coming out and what's being reported back from ISD. So I just don't want it to be the kind of thing where, we have to find the balance and we have to sort of work through, but understand the impacts.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Counselor Leckrone.
So I won't get into all of the different pages. Thank you. I won't get into all the different pages that I had comments. I assume that this was the highlights. And it's been a little bit since I read. I can't remember if everything's in it. I just want to point out two things, if I may. One is even in the highlights, making justice neighborhoods a priority in resilience. And the other is on the website, if you could put on and keep current next steps. So as soon as the new draft is ready, or to say we're working on a new draft, it's ready. We're planning to go to city council sometime January or February would be very helpful for those like me who are tracking. And I'll add two other things. Can we find out what the environmental cost to actually collect recycling and trash is? Because my suspicion is weekly recycling is unnecessary, given most of that stuff is clean, and that there's a cost to stop and pick up very lightly loaded barrels. And then on the parking lot lighting, I think there may be insurance concerns. So for instance, I go by Whole Foods and its lights are on well after closing, but I suspect that they may be there for insurance concerns, which doesn't mean it can't be solved, but it is probably an unintended consequence of something else.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Berwick, and thank you, Ms. Weiss, and and thank Mr. Nyman as well, although he is not here, but he's obviously actively at work, and we appreciate that. So this item, I think, will return in the future, but in a different form. So I'd entertain a motion on both the no action necessary, just so that we clarify where we're at.
Necessary on both of them.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention? Okay, the ayes have it. Now let me go to just a note that there is a memo on 30224 aligning zoning to proposed use in new development. It's an extensive presentation, and Ms. Kyra, we promised not to ask you to discuss it, but we did ask you to present it. So I don't know exactly how you can do walk that fine line between telling us what's there without telling us what's there.
I'm going to defer to Mr. Lavelle on this one, who put this presentation memo together. So I'm happy to fill in any other questions.
Sure, I'm happy to.
You want to come to the table where you can be heard a little better?
I'm happy to. Sure. So discuss but don't present.
Well, I think
present but don't discuss.
Present but don't discuss. Okay. Well, I think the couple things that I would highlight is this has been an item that's been on your agendas for a bit now. I would say from spring, summer of this year, through the fall, some really key highlights are, we kind of did some analysis of the issue here, which again is that you have residential development occurring in business zoned properties. And this is a kind of a historic kind of holdover, so to speak, in that if you look at the maps of where these areas are, these are in typically parts of the city that were developed earlier on, where you had business, all different housing typologies, industry kind of all next to each other. And as the zoning code changed from the first one adopted in the 1920s, you see these areas, these zoning districts, which allowed a whole host of building typologies in multifamily, residential, mixed use, business, industry, to it getting more and more, bifurcated and separate, and kind of less and less and less. And these are these kind of holdover areas around and adjacent to village centers, a lot of them. And because of that, over the last 10, 20 years, developers have kind of found a way to exploit the development potential of that business zoning district for fully residential development. It requires a special permit, it goes through the city council, and the largest amount of these parcels, and the largest amount of where this development is happening is in Northampton along up and down Adams Street. And the exercise was to kind of learn what to do about this. And we ended up going out, walking around the neighborhood of Councilor Oliver and Councilor Leary, and you saw kind of, particularly along Adams Street, this happened, but it's on Watertown Street, it's on California Street, predominantly in Northampton. You saw the new development that was occurring, approved by the city council under special permit. You saw the kind of typical historic development patterns that are there. And we tried to identify, okay, where does this make sense and where does it not make sense? And the kind of what we have inevitably presented to all of you was two options to explore. One in the short term is that areas off of Adams Street, areas, and Adams Street is kind of the proxy of kind of the commercial or larger mixed use street within the city. Areas that are in this situation where they're residential development, but they're zoned business, those could be rezoned. Those could be rezoned to the adjacent, in most cases, in almost all cases, the adjacent multi-residence, the MR zone. And then the second option, which would require kind of longer term study, was to modify the dimensional rules within the business zoning district, maintain the business zone, particularly, again, using Adams Street as kind of our proxy, is that we want to see that commercial development makes sense there. If it were to be fully commercial, then so be it. But if you were to develop residential, then we could modify the rules and regulations, the setbacks, the heights, etc., to something different, so that it would better guide such development if and when it were to occur. And those are kind of both things that are up for moving forward in the new term when it comes along.
Super, that's a very nice presentation. Thanks.
Discussion, commentary.
Are we discussing this?
Well, we can take a little bit, sure. I don't want to, because we're going to not discuss it in terms of action tonight. It's just it's a little bit like the climate action. We're going to come back to it, I think. But let me
This is
just
sort of a question. Recently, the land use committee had before it or former cleaners in Newton Island? Was
No,
it
Four Corners,
Four
1100, 1102,
Yeah.
Beacon Street.
So, and it's been empty for a long, long time, and it
Sure.
came to the council many years ago to become housing, and they turned it down. And it applied again for housing, and they turned it down because they'd rather have commercial, but the place is sitting vacant for commercial, so the question, I guess, is what can we do to make it more commercial friendly? If we really want that site to be commercial, what do we do to make it commercial friendly? And if there is anything, so I know I don't expect you to have the answer to that, but I think that's a question that needs to be answered.
I mean, the general rule for commercial is you need more people to support commercial. And this in particular is a pretty small site, and it might make sense that residential might make sense. I think you can take these in their case by case basis. I think what's happening in and off Adam Street is the scale of development that's being improved, and the immediately adjacent use being typically, one or two single or two family homes, or smaller scale multifamily, that those two side by side from like a mass setback, etc., are kind of sometimes could be clashing with each other. And in this case, it might not very well be the case, or you allow a certain amount of development of residential above to cross subsidize the residential below. But those numbers aren't insignificant, right? It takes something to support that retail or commercial space below.
Now that I think about it, it seems that came to the council once before when we were doing marijuana shops. And they wanted to put a marijuana shop there, and they said there wasn't enough parking, so they turned that down too. So it's,
Anyway,
Well, now there's no requirement.
I'm gonna ask people to be, because we got a few things I want to finish up with the meeting, but let me just recognize Councilor.
Okay, I think that these are all questions that are very interesting and need to be dealt with. One of the things that I think governs what people build in any given era is what the economic conditions are and what can get financed. Because we will all remember the Chestnut Hill, the Wegmans Plaza, that was it was designed with two 19-story towers, or tall towers. I think they were about 19 stories. And they never got built because that was in 08, 09, 07, 08, 09, when the housing crashed. And when the design, after it goes through city process, when they go to put it out to the banking and investment community, they're not going to get any takers, or the rate of return, investment rate of return that would be required in order to cover the risk of building something at a time when the absorption of that product isn't happening is so high as to make the project unfeasible, financially unfeasible. And that's a lot of what's going on, for example, at Riverside. They and also at Northland had to do away with the commercial portion of it because they knew that they would have a lot of difficulty going out to the investment world and getting the financing in place at a percentage that you can build anything if you don't care what your interest rates are, and somebody will give you the money to do it, but that doesn't mean that it will get leased. And so I would like to hear some discussion in the ongoing discussion in the future about Newton not wanting to lose its commercial base, and what can be done in order to either encourage or build whatever, I think local, as you say, if you've got enough residential to support local businesses, then that type of commercial probably would work. The office space after COVID, who knows whether we'll ever absorb the 1/3 of the commercial buildings that are now empty. And that's the main reason why they're not being built, because they can't be leased.
Let me go to Councilor Leary and then Councilor Allen.
Yeah, just to follow up on Councilor Danberg, the economics of building in commercial spaces. I think it's important that we understand that. And speaking on, as a member of the land use committee, there is a strong feeling among that committee, and I'm sure it's most of the city council too, to preserve our commercial spaces. And I think that is important. But I think we need to have some criteria about that. Using 1100, 1102 Beacon Street as an example, because it's very recent and it's being withdrawn without prejudice tomorrow night at the land use meeting. They came before us twice. We had asked them to come back for other kind of modifications. But I was a little frustrated because the reason why it wasn't going to go anywhere in land use was exactly because there was concern about building residential in a commercial space. And I understand that the problem, this was a very limited space. There were some economic reasons why it wasn't viable. So to have some criteria about that. Otherwise, we should just tell people if they have a commercial property, zone commercial, a BU, and they want to do residential, don't come to the land use committee because it's going to be denied. Unless we have some criteria about that. So we don't want to waste anybody's time or money.
Interesting. I mean, this is a unique site in that, it's interesting, we're not talking about the BCOD update. There was another memo associated with that. So this was an area that was originally included as part of the properties to be included within the BCOD. And I think there are properties of this size, which is small and difficult, that are moving forward in some way, shape, or form. And I think the dimensions and the allowance within that type of zoning framework could have produced a pathway for a property like this. Not all, of course, it's a small site and it'd still be difficult, but it'd be interesting to go to those property owners and say, if these were the set of rules that you were working with, would it be viable to develop a project like you want?
And that project has been vacant for 5 years.
Okay, Councilor Oliver, and then we go to Councilor Jones.
Great, thank you. Just as kind of a reminder, I guess, it's been a while. I mean, where we started, or the genesis of this was really the behind Adam Street kind of completely residential areas of Nantum that still had lots that were zoned business.
Right.
And again, the impetus here was our famous 20 Clinton, where in part the FAR associated with that lot that was held over from the commercial side was, I want to say it was 1.2-ish. Massive structures on that property led to just, I think, just drive down Clinton Street and you'll see what I mean. So I do think that is really important not to get lost in the greater dialogue, because I think everything you're saying is correct. We have to figure out how to protect the commercial that we have in a smart way that allows for things to actually be built there that people can make money on so that they will build it. Completely agree. But I don't want to lose sight of the off-Broadway, so to speak, or off Adams in this particular case. I'm not gonna go into great detail, per chair's wish, I'll leave it there, but that's kind of, again, reminder, that's where we came from, where we really started. But anyway.
Councilor Getz, and then let's finish up.
And just in, while you were speaking, I looked this up, you know, in terms of looking at the map for the, you know, the VCOD. And it was actually proposed to be BC2, but it was considered a priority street. So this is where we have to find the place where we can maintain a certain amount of commercial, but then possibly allow a little bit more residential. Because this is actually one of those areas that actually lives in that world where, like Adams Street, you know, it can support commercial and there is viability because there's quite a bit of housing, just already new
Yeah.
housing in the area.
Yeah.
So I really do think it's important to think about that mixed use.
Okay, just inside the committee, and then I'll come. Councilor Ray.
I'll be quick. Follow up with Councilor Oliver, what he said. We came to this mainly for residential areas with commercial lots. What's happening in Four Corners, that could happen on any BU lot. So that's I think kind of a separate thing. I mean, we should have some standards there, but that could happen everywhere in the city.
Yeah.
But what we wanted to address is this other aspect.
And I'll just say to that, in the memo presentation provided, we have a kind of, we have a map of recommended lots just off of Adams Street that could essentially be rezoned to MR and taken up next term.
Yep, I think that's great.
Thank you. Appreciate the economy with which this conversation is going forward, given it's our last meeting. Councilor Alban, I want to do.
I'm just curious if that was to be part of the VCOD, it makes sense to add it in, to go back and add it in.
That is up to the council, the new term. Take out.
But it seems like that the developer doesn't want to do it. They want to do all commercial, all residential, and it's VCOD and it's a primary street.
Yeah.
It has,
primary street.
yeah, it has to have commercial on the first floor.
So my, again, I haven't been a part of these conversations, but my sense is that mentality or that framework is based on the underlying zoning, which wouldn't allow as much as VC2. So it's possible, and I don't know if this is true, but it's possible with the dimensional controls and the allowance of VC2 that, you know, providing a small retail component on the ground floor, and it would be small, given that the lot is only 5,000 square feet, could be viable, but I don't know that.
All right, hang on. Councilor-elect Roach, you've been patient. What's your?
Happy to wait. So I'd like to offer a slightly different framework to think about, which is productivity in the neighborhood. And the 1102, is it Beacon Street, seems to me a perfect example, right? Yes, it's great that we preserve commercial space, but right down the street are a couple of buildings that are woefully underused. And so it's almost like concentrating the commercial would be more productive from a revenue perspective than actually having commercial space the entire way. And I just want to offer that as a possible alternative framework for looking at a property like this, where possibly adding homes there net would have greater benefit to the vacant commercial than maintaining that as commercial.
So you got a lot of homework. You're still with us next term. And thank goodness. And we have, and you'll have conversation with the land use committee, I'm sure, planners as well.
Sure.
So thank you for a non-presentation presentation.
Of course.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to any on that item, but again, this I suspect will come back.
Oh, I promise you.
Yeah.
So yeah, motion to NAN 30224.
Okay, all those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Abstention, okay. And then there are a whole string of items that I'm just going to move NAN, if you permit me as the chair, so that we can just dispose of them properly. I'm just gonna read the docket items, but they're in the agenda, 2620. I'm sorry.
Are we gonna take the second one, the VCOD, before we go through all the NANs?
Sure, you can.
Yeah. Where is it in the order?
I thought it was the next thing.
It's
No,
the
it's in
next,
the
but
list.
it's,
It's in there.
but
It's in the
it's one to NAN.
Oh, okay, sorry.
We
Okay, go
don't
ahead.
plan to discuss it.
Yeah.
You can pull it up if we want, but, so let me read these, 2625, this is relating to the multi-resident zone, 8025, commercial office space, 29524, parking in village centers. We've done some discussion on a lot of these issues anyway. 2725, two-family detached, 25824, this is manufacturing districts in Denham, 8524, this is preservation of existing homes, 4124, amend setbacks and to preserve existing buildings, 4324, quarterly updates on the VC overlay district. So we move NAN on all those items, recognizing that part of the work of the period of time between this committee and the new council is just to spend a little time with Ms. Holden and the vice chair to try and make sure that we don't lose these items and we're NANing from the possibility of people reviving them because they just don't remember that they're there. I mean, they may not want to do it, but.
I'll move it.
And then, okay, all those in favor say aye.
I think Councilor
Yeah.
Oh, you
Gates
can't
was-
say again?
Piece that I think that I was to speak to Counselor Wright, it's the 4324, it's that we got some content, in the packet to discuss the item.
I'd like to discuss this.
Discuss it before we NAN.
Okay, we can do it
Yes.
before we vote. And this is, I say, discussion on the vote, all right? So, all right, Mr. Lavelle, you again have, you have a,
Yes.
again, an economic opportunity, so to speak. In terms
Sure.
of economic, in terms of time management.
Well, I guess if there was one takeaway to show from the last few months is that we are seeing preservation occur through enhanced development rights. And I think, granted, that's been mostly at the periphery within the MRT, the multi-residence transit zone. But there have been 4 site plan approved projects where the existing home has been preserved and it's being renovated to multi-unit, and another building is being added that's also multi-unit behind it.
The
There's-
adaptive reuse.
Adaptive reuse.
So
There's a
just to
building.
be clear, this is 2625 we're talking about. Okay.
4324.
Oh, 43.
Last one.
Sorry. Oh, excuse me, 4324. Thank you.
Yes, so I think that's probably the main takeaway. I know through the Historic Commission, 19 Highland, the Swedenborgian Church in Newtonville has been moving through that. That'll be another example of kind of adaptive reuse with additional development. And so I think that we, when properly calibrated, additional developments can lead to preservation. There's also situations where there is fully new development coming in down the pipeline. It's just a bit, further behind. And I think those larger kind of core village center projects are slowly getting the wheels moving. And I think there's a lot of external factors, the economy, labor, et cetera, that are holding those back. But I do think we are going to see and are seeing better products hitting the market in Newton because that are being built and developed through the village center zoning. 4749 Chase Street in Newton Center is wrapping up. I think if you go down that street, those 2 buildings look like they should and have been there. Councilor Danberg, I think you can attest that more than anyone else. 610 Floral Street is kind of framed out, which I provided a picture of. And of course, we'll see these adaptive reuse where the existing home is being saved and the new building put behind it.
Councilor Wright.
So a couple of questions. So actually, the church was not part of VCOD. And, because the lot was too big, and so they subdivided it, and then that is now part of VCOD, but I don't think it was
Well, it
ever.
was also landmark, so that helped.
Yes,
It was always in the VCOD.
Yes, it was always part.
I thought it was over 30,000.
It
So-
was, but those lots were still in VCOD. They
You just
weren't
couldn't count
counted
them.
Okay,
Oh,
oh,
because they weren't by right.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. So I was just wondering, so, units of permitting in the pipeline is 106. How many roughly is MRT of that 106? 50 units, 75? Just a rough idea.
I would imagine it's in like the 20-ish range, right? Because we,
So, what was the number?
106.
106, so
24, well, it's permitting pipeline.
Is
yeah,
there-
so
is the
take
church-
out
is the
about
church in there? That's-
35 is the church.
so we,
So about 65 then is MRT then.
Yeah.
And do you know if those are, percentage of those roughly are actually going to rentals versus condos?
we don't know,
We don't know.
and we don't need to know. I mean, it's just not something, it's not on purview.
And there's no way that we can figure that out later?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So my sense is that they will go lean more towards condo than rental, but it's something we can track.
Yeah, I would like to track that, because that's something we want to do, because those are smaller, more attainable. And if it's going all rentals, because we have lots of rentals per se, what else could we do to incentivize condos?
Yeah.
This echoes the inclusionary zoning conversation.
Yes, it does.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Just real quick,
Yeah.
I'm
Vice Chair.
assuming that, and I'm gonna butcher the address, but Washington Street is not in here. The, people are calling it the,
The Chinese restaurant. one.
yeah,
Rice
okay,
Valley.
Rice Valley, thank you.
It-
793.
It's not in there because it's not
It's too.
going through any, but yeah.
Okay.
But I guess I would highlight that they are looking to explore, 100% affordable.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
development.
yeah.
That's all right.
I just, can we go over that last slide for cleanup? And I agree with some of these, but I need to understand what you're saying on this. So like the first one, allow more,
Tell us what slide you're talking about.
last one, 7,
If Mr.
maybe bring it up.
If he can put it up, I think we
Yeah.
should. I can see it because I've got a printed version, but the
Page
rest of
7.
us who don't. have it.
Sure. I'm gonna need to. I logged out of Zoom. I'm gonna need to.
You want me to pull it up from the Friday packet?
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be great, thank you.
So allow more flexibility for unit placement and adaptive reuse. I think we require 25 feet, 20 feet distance between buildings, and that, are you looking at making that smaller or what
So I think,
exactly?
I think that's a possibility. What it's really referring to is how the units are divided within the building. So right now, if you're going through MRT, every building needs 3 units, or 3 or 4 in a new building, or 3 to 6 in a reuse. And I think thinking about it more about units on a site is a better way to think about it. For example, we've seen some reuse projects come in that have carriage homes where it's not feasible for that carriage home to turn into 3 units, but it could be feasible for it to be saved and turned into 1 units or 1 unit where there are, and then the main building is turned into 4 or 5 for a total of, whatever it is. So I think allowing that sort of flexibility could go a long way into, again, further helping preserve while adding.
And the second one?
So I think what we're seeing, the parking setbacks that are within the VCOD were really, and this happened, I think we talked about this in general. The MRT district is at a completely different scale than the main VC2 and VC3 districts. And there are regulations like parking setbacks that were really tailored more for that development scale and not MRT. And I think they don't make sense in the same way for MRT. And this is just a general thing that we need to really look in. So there are smaller sites, tight sites, that, if you could have parking, in different locations, it would make a lot of times for a better layout. I think 6 to 10 floral is, that's going in the Newton Highlands, which I think is gonna be a really great project. But it's odd, the number of curb cuts and things like that to make it work, and it's a subdivided site, it's 2 lots. That's because of the parking setbacks, that why it's being formed how it is, and I think you could end up with a better situation if those were made more lenient and flexible.
I'll just add the 312 Lake Ave is another example where, because of the parking setback, the parallel parking space had to be closer to the front of the building, not in front, because that wouldn't have been allowed per zoning, but it would have been a better outcome for it to have been on the other side of the driveway, but it couldn't be because of that parking setback.
And I agree on number 3. I'm thinking one specifically allow fully commercial too.
Yeah, that's a really easy one. That's just deleting one line within the, so I would recommend docking that.
And then modifying the minimum distance between buildings. So do you want to see it smaller or be a percentage of the size of the lot, or?
I don't know if I would say a specific number. I mean, I think if this were something that, again, I think if we've seen preservation happen. If we wanna allow preservation to occur on smaller lots with smaller buildings, then you would need to allow things to get a little bit tighter. And the question that I would have is, those conditions exist. I'm not saying that they are the norm, and I also don't think developers want, there's kind of there's a sweet spot where they need to sell these things at the end of the day. But I think exploring the 20-foot where we are now, or 25 foot?
25 and
20,
VC2, VC3,
right,
20.
20 feet, right, so
MRT.
I think exploring that a little bit more, we might say, hey, this might unlock a lot more parcels that would utilize the adaptive reuse provisions if this were the case, versus where they are now.
And one quick question. So if we make any of these changes, especially like allow fully commercial, which like you said, it's just one line, it has to go to the state and they have to review it and get permission from it, or what?
No, that shouldn't, so it's about the zoning for state compliance is about the allowance of housing. So allowing fully commercial doesn't supersede or change the allowance of housing. So I think if we were to make a change that were to prevent the housing option within the zoning, then that would be a different story, but everything else should be fine.
But would you need to submit and actually ask for
I think technically we're supposed to send them any changes that happen. All of these, I don't see these affecting the calculation at all. They're generally, a little bit more permissive, or the commercial would be totally irrelevant as long as you didn't require fully commercial.
Right.
That would be a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Allowing it doesn't change the number of housing units that could potentially be built.
Can you guys write up, you clearly know what needs to be modified. Can you just write up the docket language?
Yeah, well, so
Before we get
Yeah,
to the
that's-
docket,
Yeah,
why
that's,
don't we discuss where we're going with these?
yeah,
Well,
I
they're,
think,
they're interesting to discuss in the next
I
term.
agree, but
But
so
we
let's
can't do it
discuss them and
without
then get to the docket
hang
language.
on,
afterwards.
let me recognize people a little
Sorry.
bit here. But I think that you've given us some things that are worth thinking about next time, and you've got a memo about it, so let's. But I'd rather not get an extended discussion tonight, but I think you've given us some things to chew on. And, but my expectation was that we will have an update on the BCOD as part of the new terms menu of items that the committee will take up. Now, what comes out of that and the docket item may be, may emerge from that discussion, but I wouldn't
Well,
prejudge
some of
that.
us might want to docket something January 1st, and it'd be nice to have some language. That's all I'm asking for.
You can ask for anything you want. I'm just not expecting anything to get done between now and January 1st.
I wouldn't think so.
Since this is our last meeting.
Fair to the home team here, I appreciate what they've done, but we're losing our director and we're losing Ms. Kara, but they're certainly
Yeah,
Yeah.
it might be nice that you could then drop into your thoughts, and just plant them.
Zach is fully up to speed.
Oh, I know, but you guys have been discussing.
Oh, yeah,
this.
we've been discussing, we've been tracking, Zach's been tracking things as they come up, as we're seeing it through the process. So any of my thoughts have already been incorporated there.
Okay. That's great.
But we have a motion on the floor. Any more discussion? I mean, it doesn't mean Councilor Albright, you can't get docket items. I don't mean to minimize that.
thank
Because I
Thank you
just
so
wasn't
much.
expecting that to emerge as
Because they're
a
precious.
tonight. What? I'm sorry.
I just said they're precious.
Our time is, well, we're trying to figure out how the committee manages this time, but I'm not in charge of this yet. And we don't know what I'll be in charge of, so we'll see. Question, any other questions? All right, all those in favor, NAN, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? The ayes have it. All right. Now, we have one other item that's not formally before us, but we are joined tonight by Ms. Kyra. We're grateful that she is here. And Mr. Lamel, I hope you stick around. I want to say how much we've appreciated your assistance. We had the assistance of Mr. Lee earlier. I think he's no longer with us. We've got other members of the council here online, as well as a member of the committee, Councilor Kalis. I want to say how much I've appreciated the contribution that not only the staff, but all of the members of the committee and those who've attended from time to time who are not on the committee to do the work we've done. We've really, I think, through the committee, the council has done a fair amount of work in the last 2 years. And what Councilor Eller and I have is a citation to read for Ms. Kyra. We would like to honor her, and also the planning director, but he is not here.
He is sick.
He is sick.
Unfortunately.
Oh, he doesn't even get cookies. This is, we have to do something to save something.
Or multiply with the penalty for missing.
So the vice chair and I worked together to produce this city council commendation to you, and there's a parallel version for him, but with slight modifications for obvious reasons, but the content is the same. And so what I thought that the vice chair and I would do this jointly because we've signed it on behalf of the committee. I hope that's all right, but we couldn't convene all of you in advance. So this is City of Newton City Council commendation honoring Jen Kyra for her outstanding accomplishments during her time as Deputy Director of Planning and Development. You want to read the first?
We're going down here,
Yeah,
right, but it's, so we're
you're right there.
there, right. Jen Kyra began serving as the Deputy Director of Planning and Development for the City of Newton in 2019, and
Whereas Ms. Kyra has been a principal advisor to the 2024-25 Newton City Council Zoning and Planning Committee, and
Ms. Kyra oversaw some of the following changes to Newton zoning ordinances during the 24-25 term.
updates to the special permit zone change and site plan review fees.
Requiring special permit review for all retaining walls over 4 feet.
Requiring building height is measured from original grade instead of finished grade.
Incorporation of the fast food establishment use into the restaurant use, allowing for shared maker spaces and or co-working, and defining place of amusement use. Place of amusement use.
Floodplain ordinance updates.
I get all the long ones, that's great.
Yeah.
Revisions of the requirements for accessory or ADUs or accessory dwelling units, including changes required by the new state law.
Preventing large homes from building from side setback to side setback through the creation of maximum residential facade build-out ratio.
Fantastic work. Removing parking minimums for commercial uses in commercial centers.
Allowing small changes to existing homes to be made by right.
And the creation of a new adult daycare use.
Updating the inclusionary zoning ordinance. Right? Not bad for 2 years, folks.
So now it says applause here.
Yeah. Now we're not quite through. Now therefore it be known. You wanted to read that part.
That in recognition of Ms. Kyra's final meeting with the committee this term, the members of the Zoning and Planning Commission wish to extend heartfelt appreciation and gratitude for Ms. Kyra's service, We thank Ms. Kyra for her dedication and wish her continued success in all her future endeavors.
This is a commendation off this 8th day of December on behalf of the Zoning and Planning Committee of the Newton City Council by Chair Arlisle Baker and Vice Chair John Oliver. So, Ms. Kyra. Yay. We have to have a picture. Everybody got a camera that can take a picture?
With everyone.
We can do that. So, yeah, Stan, why don't you shoot me in the middle here and we'll stand around.
Thank you so much for this. And just want to say, this is clearly not all me. So much of this is Zach and Nora and the rest of the team. So I do not want to
We
take
appreciate them and
full
they
credit here.
they are certainly unindicted co-conspirators. But they're grateful to.
Yes, I'm lucky to work with all of you. All right, 3, 2, smile again. Thank you so much.
We can like, you know, Photoshop right in. Right.
Where's his bobblehead?
And we have a parallel resolution signed for Barney, and I'm sorry he can't be here, but
I'm happy to pass.
would you be the
along.
delivery
Yes.
service, the post office? All right,
Thank you for this.
but thank you for, I mean, all of the formalities aside, we're grateful to you for your time and service to us, and we don't always agree with you. I don't want you to go away with misunderstanding. However,
You have sharpened my debate skills. For that I am thankful. I've learned a lot through this time, so it's been great working with this committee and really proud of the work that we've done.
well, we've enjoyed working with you and good luck in your new role. And, but you've left a good team behind, and Laura and Zach, and we will certainly carry on with them, but thank you very much for all you do. All right, I'll accept the motion to adjourn. Where's Councilor Frenchman when I need it?
Here?
There he is.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's joined by Councilor Malachy. All right, motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.